Ever wonder what everyone's doing on their phones? They're banking with Bank of America.
They're saving, planning, and budgeting all before dessert.
Digital tools so impressive, you just can't stop banking. What would you like the power to do?
So we're about to have a discussion with a terrific panel anchored by Guy Gordon about the future of the automotive industry. And I just wanted to share the Chamber's thoughts on this, because when we think about the innovation economy, it's certainly not just about the auto industry. I mean, think of the assets that we've already heard about: fintech, healthcare. Innovation driven by AI is going to change all of our lives. But when we think about, our auto industry, we are still the Motor City. I want everyone to think about two things. First, the auto industry that we invented and defined the world is the most complex and valuable supply chain on the planet. Every country that has two coconuts to rub together is vying for a piece of the automotive supply chain. And keeping it here in Michigan is not a guarantee, but it is a necessity. Second, legacy industries are the basis of the next best thing. The aerospace industries of the West Coast spawned the big tech companies that we know today. And the auto industry can be that basis. So, this is not news. I am old. I was around in the 1970s and the 1980s. Now, unlike, or maybe it's like some of you, I did not live here at that time. I'm a relative newcomer to Michigan. But when I think back to what this state, how this state approached the last big transition in the automotive industry, I think there are lessons to be learned. In the 1970s and the 1980s, a lot of folks in Michigan had the thought that we're not going to give up our big American cars for these little econo boxes. And let's face it, those first wave of Japanese little cars weren't exactly the most exciting things on wheels. But growing up in the West Coast at that time, we had already made that shift. We had already given up, Mom's Ford Country Squire LTD wagon with the concealed headlights for a Honda Accord. We had already made that shift. We have to think about what is coming next, not where we are today. So it's safe to say that the strategic error that we all made in the 1970s and 80s, kind of as a government, as a people, and at that time, you have to say the companies as well, was a strategic error that we never fully recovered from. I mean, just look at what the market share was for US-made cars back in the day versus today, what the share of Michigan-built cars in the United States was back in the day versus today. The numbers are not great. So when we look at data, and for those of you who know our organization well, we spend a lot of time focused on data. We have a terrific research and data department with Kristen Lucas and Ostea. We do a lot of polling with the Gallup organization, with the Glenn Gariff group. We love to see what the numbers tell us because numbers are solid. Let's look at the transition just to EVs. So in just 4 years, we've gone from a product market of 12 EVs being on the market to 75 today. That is a 6x uptick. When you look at the market share of EVs in the United States, in that same 4-year period, it's a 330% increase. And if you look at what the EV share is in the EU or in China, and I understand China, there's lots of noise around China and how they get there and all that, those are pretty big numbers. Think of this as a stock or as a company. If you saw these numbers, is this something you'd invest in? 6x new entrants and a 330% increase in market share. If you're an investor, you're thinking, I'm interested in that. So we're going through this transition today. Fortunately, the transition isn't from big, luxurious Buick Electras to little boxes that look like tin cans. We're going from really great cars that we build today to even better cars that we're building today. Now, this is not a you've got to drive an EV conversation. There's been way too much of either or. Oh, EVs are bad. It's become a political issue. Or, everyone's got to drive an EV. It's not an either or conversation. For example, I'm an old school ICE guy. I've got 3 500 horsepower cars back at the ranch. I'm also on my 3rd EV. And once you drive an EV, it's not about saving the planet. Yeah, if you want to save the planet, go save the planet. It's just a great driving experience. We as Michiganders need to approach this transition in the way Governor Whitmer just phrased it, is that we don't care if you drive an ICE or an EV, but we shouldn't be either or. We shouldn't say that, oh, if you're driving an ICE car, that's wrong. Everyone needs to drive an EV, or vice versa. We've got to be an all-of-the-above approach. In fact, if you go back to the numbers I just shared, that we're now at 7% market share, getting to 20% market share in EVs in the next 8 years, 12 years, seems awfully realistic to me. Would you, as a business owner, ignore 20% of a market? And by the way, 20% of the market is exactly the share of full-size pickup trucks in the United States. So we need to get real about how we talk and think about and strategize about this shift to electrification. Let's be real. EVs aren't for everybody, certainly today, right? Anyone who says everyone should drive an EV in the next X number of years, I don't care what it is out of their mind. It doesn't make sense, right? But if EVs weren't a political issue, and let's face it, it's a big political issue. It was a big political issue in the campaign. Think of the lush market. Single-family housing, they have a garage, upper middle class, they have 2 cars in the family. How easy is it for one of those to be an EV? And then, when you look at what China's doing, 5 years ago, Chinese cars weren't great. Today, they're really great. So if we're going to lead in the automotive/mobility space, if we're going to build our innovation ecosystem in large part off of our traditional legacy automotive industry and the innovators that come in to support it, it's hard to lead if we don't have followers. This is a disconnect. We've got to figure this out. So it's our choice. We can lead or we can lag. You're thought leaders. You can help make that decision. Thanks so much.
Ever wonder what everyone's doing on their phones? They're banking with Bank of America.
They're saving, planning, and budgeting all before dessert.
Digital tools so impressive, you just can't stop banking. What would you like the power to do?